Why we couldn't say anything more about the validation committee, I will just mention briefly, was because of, and I said it was a peculiar committee. First meeting, we had to sign a confidentiality agreement that we would never talk about anything that happened on the committee, what the committee did over the course of not only one's lifetime, but our own lifetime. Now, I have been a town meeting member in my home community, a member of a library board, trustee. Never in my life have I ever signed confidentiality agreements, but these were privately set up meetings and committees, because the two groups that wrote the standards, National Governors Association, which is composed of any governor who wants to have dues paid, which come, by the way, from your tax money, and CCSSO, Council of Chief State School Officers, which consists of the superintendents or commissioners of education who also pay dues that come from your tax money. Those were the two groups, together with the Achieve Incorporated, which is a separate private group spin-off of the NGA in the 1980s. But those three groups were funded by the Gates Foundation, and the Gates Foundation has tentacles everywhere here. It supports almost everything except, of course, me. Although I'm often asked who's paying for my trolley fare to load an airport. There are insinuations that people ride around in black helicopters paying for my expenses by travelers, as if that is the counterpart to all the millions that Gates has given. In any event, those three private groups were the Dodge for developing these so-called national standards, for appointing or hiring the standards writers, because we don't have any records. There are no sunshine laws, no minutes of meetings available. I can't even get a hold of the contract. What was the contract for hiring David Coleman and Sue Pimentel, or for Jason Zimba and Bill McCallum and Phil Darrow, who were the three people who wrote the math standards? Can't even get that information. What were they asked to do? What were they paid? We don't know. There's nothing that's foiable, because these were private organizations, and that was how it was set up. Very shady affair. And where was the media in all of this? Out to lunch. I can't believe that Gates paid off every reporter in the country. I know that couldn't have been the case. But no one in the media ever said, what's going on? Who are these people being appointed to write our standards? What are their qualifications? Who's being appointed to the validation committee? How come only one mathematician, not even one high school math teacher? Of course, I've learned since then that high school math teachers were deliberately excluded because they're the only ones in a K-12 system that can understand high school math standards. Have to understand that no one else can. Science teachers could too, by the way, good science teachers in high school. Physics, because you cannot teach physics without a certain amount of math. So if you kill math or lower math, you also kill science at the same time. Even chemistry and other subjects require a certain level of math, and if you delay, which Common Course math standards do, the teaching of Algebra 1, so that it's not completed until grade 9 or even grade 10, you delay advanced science subjects as well. It's very cleverly thought out, but it's a way to dumb the whole curriculum down by about 2 grades worth. Why? You have to speculate as well as I, because no one's going to tell you why they did that. We don't even know why Gates is funding it either. People keep asking me, well, what's Gates' motive? I don't know. I'm not a psychoanalyst, so I can't tell you what his motive is. But the reporters are out to lunch. They're looking at the wrong things. They're blaming parents for being part of this misinformed, hysterical group of people who fly around in black helicopters. They are looking at legislators who don't understand and are misinformed because they simply haven't gotten the correct facts. And then, of course, there were 2 other groups that were excluded. First were the parents who were excluded. They were nowhere to be seen on any of these committees. Teachers were there in the lower grades. A few school administrators were there on the validation committee, but no high school English teachers in sight. I had to basically scream for one on the validation committee. I said, how can you validate ELA standards without one high school English teacher. They finally got one. And it was a token. No high school math teachers. There were no literary scholars on any of the committees. I'm not talking about the cast of reviewers. Yes, there was a cast of thousands who supposedly reviewed, but who's going to know what they said, whether it was used, because there are no records. I couldn't even get those. I used to ask for, show me the criticisms that have come from organizations, individuals, never could get anything. They put out finally their own summary of selected criticisms, public feedback, but that is obviously self-serving. There was no access to the actual documents themselves or the criticisms. So you had teachers, parents, state legislators, and local school boards. All four groups were systematically excluded from participation. In Massachusetts, I was told by several school committee people, and I wouldn't know how this worked from state to state, it could have been different. They had no idea that the state boards of education were voting in the Common Core until after the vote. And then they're told that basically their rights and responsibilities have been taken away from them. But they weren't told till after the vote. And in Massachusetts, that board, most of which is still there, never asked, what does college readiness mean? What's the cost of any of this? No cost-benefit analysis, nothing. 45 state boards of education, and I asked about this when I testified in various states. I will ask either the legislators or the state board chair, who may be there, did you ever bother to ask anyone from higher ed to tell you what the college readiness line or level means to you? Not one ever thought to ask their own higher ed folks in engineering, mathematics, and science.